Welcome.
Good morning. Welcome back, everybody. A little break since Nazir.
I just finished Nazir this week.
Mazel tov.
I skipped Saita, or we did one blot from Saita.
We
We
did.
started it
Right.
to show Hashem,
Right.
and I finished Nazir in time
Big mazel
to.
tov.
Thank you. Most stuff to you.
Are you inviting the viewers to a siyum?
Yes, we're gonna do a lavish siyum at my home in North Windmere. God willing, one of these Shabbosim,
Awesome.
and I'm very excited. It was a very hard Masechta. No one told me that going in.
Oh.
You know that?
I did not know. Yeah, I mean, listen, what did I do? But I did about 70% with you, and I did not finish.
And it got harder later on.
Yeah, I got it much harder.
Yeah, like technical.
But you did it.
I did it.
You did it.
Yeah.
You did it. How's
So
that feel?
it felt very, very
Because
good. I was on a high.
Gittin is a longer Masechta.
Yeah.
I think it's more, it might even be harder. I don't know. And the
It
question
takes-
is,
yeah.
I want to get the inspiration that you just had from finishing Masechta
Yeah.
so that we can try to finish
Yeah.
Gittin.
So it's 89 blat. Gittin is 89 blat. It is a yeshiva masechta,
Right.
right? Nazir is not a yeshiva masechta.
Yep.
So there will be nostalgia. Did you learn Gittin
Yeah,
at
I
some
did.
point? I learned it in 8th grade.
I did it in 8th grade also.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I took my farher by Rabbi Brafman and Shiva Frakwe in
Yeah?
Gittin. I thought I aced it, but I didn't get in.
You did?
I got in
did you go
later
to
on.
yeshiva?
At Chaim
okay.
Berlin. I didn't get in, but later on they said, "Oh, you can come," but I said, "No, I'm going to Chaim Berlin."
Yeah. And now look, they're wishing you
Yeah.
went.
Yeah, Gittin.
All right.
It's good masechta.
So let's get into the introduction.
So this is going to be an introduction to Gittin, right?
Mhm.
Gittin is before Kedushin in the order of the Masechtios.
Yeah. And I think everyone tries to ask that question, like, why is Gittin before Kedushin?
Right. Refuah before the Makkah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is very exciting. We don't usually do video, but we're going to try video.
Today we're doing video.
Maybe it'll be a little bit more engaging to the people.
Yeah.
Our goal with this video is to not necessarily do the Mishnah on Bays, but to talk about an introduction. Try to
Alright.
lure you into
Right.
getting involved in Masechtas Gittin.
Right. So who should want to do Masechtas Gittin? Like, who's our audience?
I think Jews.
Jews.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jews that you don't have to want to get divorced in order to learn Gittin.
No.
No.
Jews.
It's-
Just any sort of Jew.
It's about knowing and understanding, all the conversations around this mitzvah in the Torah. It is a mitzvah.
It
right?
is a mitzvah, yes.
I don't think it's obviously a mitzvah chiyuva, but we'll get into it. I think that's probably what.
Wasn't there someone who wanted to be Makayim all 613 mitzvahs, so he divorced his wife and then got remarried to her?
Yeah, I feel like I've heard that as a story.
Maybe it's like a far-fetched tale,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But we're using the art scroll, the Schottenstein edition, Daf Yomi Talmud Bavli.
Yeah, Ali has the Daf Yomi edition hardcover. I got the soft cover here. Both are great.
The Perukim range from 6, 7, 8 blot up to 13 blot, and there are about I think nine chapters.
All right, so
So we're gonna get into Gittin. If you don't have one of these, it's an art scroll. Try to purchase one at your local Judaica store, or even online. You can buy them.
or if you want one for free, Ali can get you one for free.
And if you ever see an issue, just email corrections@artscroll.com.
Corrections@artschool.com. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Maseches Gittin deals with the laws of divorce. The term get, or Gittin, plural, refers not to the divorce itself, but to the document that affects the divorce by being given from the husband to the wife. Actually, the term get can refer to any type of legal document, but it is most commonly used to refer to a divorce document, and that connotation is assumed wherever the term appears, unless otherwise indicated. Okay.
Oh, so I didn't know that. I didn't know that get is any legal
Yeah, I
document.
think like by an eved, if you want to free the eved, they also call it like a get shifra, document of freeing. We'll get to that.
Oh, it's a document. Wow.
Yeah. Tosfos add that a get is customarily written in 12 lines, because the numerical value of the word get is 12. Look at that.
Get that.
Oh. You gotta get that. Unlike marriage, which can be accomplished through a variety of devices, money, document, or cohabitation. That's right in the beginning of Kedushin.
Right.
Right? Divorce can be effected only through a divorce document given to the wife.
That's interesting.
Okay.
I never thought of that.
Right. There's only one way.
I'll pay you off in your divorce. You know, like.
Right. Here's some money. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Or if someone has an affair, that doesn't make
like the first marriage.
Right.
Bundle.
Chal, like not chal anymore.
Right.
You might be usher in some cases, but the connection is still there.
Right. You got to give that get. As explained in the general introduction to Kedushin, we'll get to that next Masechta, the Ezra's Hashem. There are two stages to marriage in Torah law. First stage is Erusin, also called Kedushin. The second stage is Nisuin. So the former stage represents the initial acquisition of the wife by the husband, usually accomplished by the groom giving the bride money, a ring or some other item of value. I think that's how we do it today.
Really, the engagement, right?
Like when we do everything under the chuppah, when we do the ring part, that affects the kedushin, and then the chuppah affects the nisuin, I believe. While the latter stage represents the completion of the marital bond, usually accomplished by staying together under the bridal canopy, the chuppah. After the initial stage of erusin, the couple is legally married in regard to most laws, though they do not live together as man and wife until nisuin. Although nowadays the erusin and nisuin invariably follow in close succession at the wedding ceremony, the law does not require that the two be done together. In fact, the two stages were often separated in the Talmudic era by as much as a year's time. As mentioned, even the first stage confers the legal status of man and wife on the couple. Thus, even erusin cannot be undone without the husband issuing the wife a get.
So a couple things. By my chuppah, there was an issue with the ksuba.
Yeah.
So we had to wait for like 15 minutes because they had to rewrite it.
Okay.
They had to rewrite
What
it.
was the issue? A name was written correctly?
Yeah, exactly. My wife, it said Ben, her grandfather, instead of her father's name.
Okay.
And then, a year's time. Think about that. Like, we're engaged, we're going to be married. Like, we think engagement times are hard now, right? Like 3 months, 4 months. Imagine waiting a year before marriage. It's almost like the Goyim have taken on that tradition. Like, someone told me, a nurse in the hospital, she's like, oh, I'm engaged. So I said, well, when's the wedding? She said, March. I said, of what year?
Right.
You know, like, you never really know, but a year's time is wow. But the introduction's saying here that even if you did that first step and then you want to part ways, he needs to issue.
You'll need a get.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to do a deep dive into where the psukim talk about Gittin. And there's quite a few psukim. I think that it's helpful to read them in Hebrew first, and then we could go and translate it.
Whatever you say.
All right. Or you know what? We could like paraphrase, and then we'll go into the next paragraph. Is that all right?
Okay, sure.
Ki yikach ish isha, when a man takes a wife, uba'ala, and cohabits with her. V'haya im loy simsachin be'einav, but he doesn't find favor in her eyes. Ki matza ba'eras davar, because he has found in her something unseemly. Because of la sefer krisos. So what does he do? He writes for her a document of severance, v'nosan biyada, and he gives it in her hand, v'shilcha mi beis, and he sends her from his house.
So it doesn't say get; it says sefer krisos.
Sefer krisos is the get. It's a I mean, literally means a book of severance or a document that separates them. So that's a get. V'yatzmi beis, and she goes out of his house, b'holcha v'haisel ishacher, and becomes a wife to another man. Okay. Usneya isha achrain. And then what goes out? Poor woman. And she goes, right? Then the latter man dislikes her. Someone else. Usneya isha achrain.
It's not you, it's him.
Right. Because of law, sefer krisos. And he also writes for her a get. The nasan biyada.
At this point, someone's making a business out of this. He's like, oh, you're divorcing her? Come. I'll make a copy.
The nasan biyada, and he gives it to her hand, v'shalchami beisai, and sends her from his house. Oi, ooh, that's either he did that. Oi ki yamos ishacharin, or maybe the second guy just dies. Asher lechala isha. Or right, the second guy dies that took her to him as a wife. Lo yuchal ba'ala harishain. Whether the second guy gave her a get or the second guy died, the first husband is not asher shilcha. The first husband that sent her away is not allowed to lasha b'kachta liyisol isha. He's not allowed to go and take her to be his wife again. Acharei asher tama ki to'eva hi lifnei Hashem. Why? Because she has been defiled, for it is an abomination before Hashem.
So it's interesting because you have a case where she is free to marry somebody else where there was no get when he dies. But that's not what the Gemara calls, or the Torah calls, a divorce. In order for there to be, meaning you can have a separation of that bond if one of the parties die.
Right.
But it's not touched up as a divorce. She's a grusha. She's an almana, not a grusha. There's a difference in the sense that when it says, oh, you could be makadish someone with kesef shtar or bia, money document, or cohabitation, divorce can be effected only through a divorce document. But that doesn't mean that a marriage can't be severed in some way other than a get.
That's correct.
It could be death, it could be a mekach tais, a false pretense of the marriage. Like there are other ways to sever the bond.
Yes, sever the bond.
Okay.
Okay. By the way, there's a little note at the bottom. The Vilna Gaon points out the word get, the letters gimel and tes are never next to each other within one word in the whole Torah. Since these letters are always separated from one another, they are an appropriate title for the instrument that separates husband and wife from another.
I missed that.
Yeah, is that?
I also like when the art scroll editorializes and it says the Vilna Gaon makes the brilliant observation, meaning that's an opinion.
Right.
But I like when art scroll steps up to the plate and says, "This right here is brilliant."
Perhaps, or maybe it says "See Divrei Eliyahu." Maybe the Divrei Eliyahu says "Apel nifla."
Yeah. Good.
I don't know, but anyway, I think. Well, let's see. You know what? We're gonna keep an eye on the theme of editorialism. I didn't know that was a word. That's cool. All right. So we want to continue with the second page of this introduction.
Volition. Let's talk about different topics that are essential to the divorce process.
Yeah, I think that we're going to break down these second.
Volition. The Torah states that the husband divorces his wife because she does not find favor in his eyes, which indicates that he must divorce her of his own free will. But if a divorce was extracted from a husband by forcing him to write a get and give it to his wife, it is not a valid divorce. The exception to this rule is a case in which the husband is forced by Torah authorities to issue a get in accordance with Torah law. In that case, if the husband finally relents and says that he wants to divorce his wife, the get is valid, even though the husband's consent was obtained through coercion. For as the Rambam explains in Hilchos Gerushin 2:20, we assume that every Yid who wishes to retain that designation actually desires to heed the words of the Rabbanan, and it is only the influence of his Yetzer Hara, his evil inclination, that incites him to do otherwise. Thus, when this external desire is overcome by force, the person's declaration that he wants to comply with the law is an expression of his true will. Wow. The Torah does not require that the wife consent to the divorce. Nevertheless, Rabbeinu Gershom, who lived over 1,000 years ago, declared a cherem, a religious ban, against any husband who divorces his wife against her will.
Okay. Oh, and that's where they have like the Konos Rabbeinu Gershom, 1,000 signatures, or something like that.
Okay.
Where if a wife doesn't want to accept a get, you get like 100 rabbis to sign something.
You said that, not me. He said that, not me.
All right.
But I want to tell you something. The Torah says that he divorces her when he finds an unseemly matter. Let me ask you, what if he wants to divorce her because he became more secular, right? And he's like, she's fine. She's a good person. I'm just off my ways. And
It's not you, it's me.
right. So, if there's nothing unseemly, does that mean that he cannot divorce her?
Mm-hmm.
Comes along the introduction and says no. The divorce is effective regardless of what motivates
He
the
doesn't
husband
have to have
do so.
claim for divorce or grounds for divorce. Right? I guess the Torah is just saying what circumstance, would make it proper for the husband to divorce his wife.
Right.
And but I guess you could do it for any reason.
We're going to talk about it on the 90th block.
Oh my God, 90? Didn't you say that there's only 89 daf?
ChatGPT told me 89.
Oh, wait a second. Maybe there is because it starts from Bays. So 90 is probably the last daf. Wow.
Interesting.
You're going to have to wait a long time.
The exact nature of these circumstances is debated on the very last page we can possibly do so.
All right. Well, do you think we'll remember when we get there? Like,
No way.
The introduction.
You think we'll get there? We could. It's 3 months. I did the math.
3 months. So what's that? We're at May. What's the date? Like May 16th?
Yeah. So June, July, August, middle of August.
Okay.
I'm on a kids' carriage trip, hopefully, in the beginning of August.
All right,
But
big CM.
We've done remote. I remember you were in Florida once. We did
Yeah, we'll do remote.
Riverside.
We're gonna do it. Okay.
What do you got on the document?
All right. So, the document, as indicated by the words "v'kosav la sefer krisos," right, and he writes the document of severance. The basic instrument of divorce is a written declaration to the effect that the husband is divorcing his wife and releasing whatever legal hold a husband has over his wife. And since it is 2023, I think like there's a big question, and this is something that sometimes I struggle with, which is like it seems like it's very difficult on the woman's side, where if she doesn't get the get, she can't get remarried.
Right.
The husband has all the power here, and it's something I want to be able to get more clarity on, because I do feel for that a little bit, and it's really difficult when a woman is in a position where the husband does want to give the get. So maybe
Well, you see, Rabbeinu Gershom was already working towards giving the women a little bit more say.
Right, that you can't just do it against her.
So there could be merit to what you're saying in today's times.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Rabbanan would feel
That's interesting, right?
a certain way.
That's a good point. All right, so
Because remember, the Torah gave power to the Rabbanan.
yeah, I heard that they're starting. I don't know how like what Rabbanim are doing this already, but
He's about to go off the chains.
I heard that there's.
Oh, here he goes. He heard. No, it's not. It's not traceable. Yeah.
I heard that.
You heard from somebody who heard.
Yeah, somebody that they're putting into like the ksuba, basically like a postnup or like a condition that in the event she wants to get divorced, a husband can't withhold a get from her. So it's like, but.
Kedushin mit stipulations.
Very good. Exactly. I think that's the big shiloh. So let's. I think we have to ask this.
It's liberal here.
This sounds like a Rabbi Leibowitz question, actually. So maybe we get it as a Shalosh Shidduch topic.
So you just fired Avi Langer. He's our Moed Asr.
I don't. I'll tell you why. This is a
Shalom
sticky
Yeshiv.
topic, Avi. I don't want you to have to answer this. It's a very. I don't want you to have to.
Because you feel
get
he's
kicked out
not
of his shul.
capable.
No, I don't want him to.
You feel he's not qualified.
His shul, they're putting up a nice building. I don't want any him to get thrown.
You feel that his madrega is not high enough, and I take assault to that.
Fine, Avi, please, I challenge you. Answer the question for us, and reinstate as again. He was the rabbi of Nazir. I wasn't sure we were hiring him again for Gittin.
Avi, if you have to go to Rabbi Leibowitz, it's okay. Just don't tell me.
So Avi, again, we accept you as the official Chavrusa Daf Rav. Please. Okay, so where were we? Examples of effective formulation. So he has to say something. You are hereby sent away. Oh, sorry, in the get. He has to say words that are showing that he's removing his legal hold. Or you are hereby in your own domain. You are hereby permitted to any man. This declaration is the essential formula of a get. The Torah's words, and he sends her from his house, however, indicate that the expression of severance must indicate that it's the wife who is being sent away from the husband and not the other way around. Accordingly, a formula such as "I am no longer your husband" would not be effective.
Wow.
For although that formula does indicate severance, it is an expression of removing the husband from the wife rather than the wife from the husband. Okay, a little bit semantics, but I see. A get is divided into two sections. Okay, the toref and the toifus. Toref and the toifus. The first section, which is the toref, which means the revealing part of the get, includes the date, the names of the husband and the wife, and their places of residence and the place where the get was drawn up, in addition to the essential declaration of the divorce. It has the meat of the get. Place of residence is actually no longer included in the get, see Ibn Ezer. But the second section of the get is called the toifus, the form of the get, which contains the text that is standard in all Gittin. This standard text elaborates on the nature and ramifications of divorce. Like, I'm sending you away, you're no longer my wife. Basically, you could probably have that as like pre-fill.
But you're not writing anything new in there, right?
Right, it's kind of like the pre-fill, and then you add in name, address, date, social security number. By law, a get may be written in any language, but the accepted custom is to write it in Aramaic using ksav ashuris, the Hebrew lettering used in Torah scrolls. This is why a scribe is usually the one who writes the get. A get written in any other manner may not be used except in pressing circumstances.
Can you walk into a Judaica store and ask for a get?
Why don't we ask a cipher? Who's the cipher? Like, we're gonna need a cipher.
I have someone that I could speak to. Rabbi Pinkus, the son
Pinkus?
of a cipher at the
I'm realizing
beautiful Judaica store.
Think he'll show us a get?
I think we can get video and stuff like that.
Because I think we're gonna want to see one
on video.
Yeah.
I
Do
could
they have
see
on
I could see
YouTube?
Reb Ellie showing Mamish like what
Yeah.
a get looks like with a photo.
Maybe he'll bring in someone and like
Maybe not.
or video.
What time is it? Because I just have to leave here.
It's 9:10.
Okay, so I have 5 more minutes.
Okay. All right, so let's get a little bit further. So
by law,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have to write it on parchment or paper?
by law, the get does not have to be written on parchment or paper. It can be written on virtually any item that is not connected to the ground. So I can send an email.
Can you send an email, Rabavi? Can you send the get over email?
The letters may be formed using virtually any substance that leaves a visible imprint.
I think that answers our question.
It may also be written on substances that cannot be erased without leaving a trace to prevent forgeries.
And emails are definitely documented. That's such a cool question.
Intent.
Write an email to your wife. Dear honey, you're no longer my honey.
It's hard because you also need Aiden to sign it.
Okay. DocuSign.
There's also something called intent. An essential feature of the get is the requirement that the get be written for her, that is, for the sake of woman to be divorced with it. This is indicated in the Torah statement that he writes for her a document of severance. Thus, the husband must write the get specifically for the divorce of the wife that he wishes to divorce, or if the husband designates a scribe to write the get, the scribe must write it for the particular woman. But if the get was written for a different woman, the husband had 2 wives with the same name, and he wrote the get intending to divorce, say, the older one, he cannot use that get to divorce the younger one, since it was not written in order to divorce her. This requirement is known as lishma, which is a term used extensively throughout the Masechta.
Okay, it has to be written lishma. Lishma.
For her sake.
For her, lishma.
The delivery. The divorce actually takes place when the husband gives the get to his wife for the sake of divorce, as indicated by the words, and he places the document of severance in her hand, and he sends her from his house. The husband does not, however, have to place the get directly in his wife's hands. He can place it even in her domain, such as in her house or courtyard. Moreover, there is a general principle that a person's agent can act on his or her behalf. This this rule of agency applies to the laws of divorce as well. Accordingly, the husband may appoint an agent to deliver the get to the wife, and the divorce takes place when the husband's agent gives the get to her. Similarly, the wife may appoint an agent to receive the get on her behalf, and the divorce takes effect when her agent receives the get from the husband, or both the husband and wife can designate agents to act for them, and the divorce takes place when the husband's agent gives the get to the wife's agent.
Ooh. Oh, everyone's got agents.
Agents. Can an agent have an agent?
Whoa.
I think so, but don't quote me on that.
Can an agent have an agent? Bobby? What's your third question?
The witnesses. In keeping with the principle, Ein davar sheba erva pachas mishnayim, no matter concerning erva, the marital relationship or status can be resolved by less than two witnesses, divorce requires the presence of at least two witnesses, in contrast to monetary cases, where two witnesses are necessary only for purposes of evidence. Witnesses for Gittin and Kedushin are a prerequisite to the validity of the process itself.
Interesting.
The divorce document itself, like any document of transaction, requires witnesses to give it legal substance. The nature of these witnesses, however, is the subject of a fundamental dispute between the Tanaim, Reb Meir, and Reb Elazar. Reb Meir is of the opinion that the witnesses necessary for divorce are the witnesses who sign the get at the behest of the husband. This view is known as Eidei Chasima Karse. The witnesses who sign sever the marital bond. Some commentators maintain that in addition to the witnesses signed on the get as an essential feature of the document of severance, Rav Meir also requires the presence of witnesses at the delivery of the get to the woman, since it is that act of delivery which changes her marital status. Reb Elazar, however, is of the opinion that the get itself does not have to contain the signature of witnesses at all. Rather, the witnesses needed for the divorce are the witnesses who observe the actual delivery of the get to the woman. This view is known as Eidei Mesira Karse. The witnesses to the delivery sever the bond. Accordingly to Reb Elazar, the common practice that witnesses also sign the get was instituted as a practical measure, as Zayzak the Mishnah on 86a. This is because the witnesses who observe the delivery of the get might die or travel overseas, in which case the wife will be unable to prove that she was legally divorced. Her possession of a signed get, however, will prove that she's divorced. There's a little bit more to this machlekes on the other side, but I just want to run through a couple of other items here. There are conditions attached to the divorce. Conditions can be attached to the get as in other transactions. For example, the husband can stipulate that the get is conditional on his wife traveling to a certain place. If she travels to that place, then she is divorced. Otherwise, she is not. The condition need not be written in the get itself, but can be verbally stated at the time of the get's delivery. Whatever the condition, however, it cannot be one that requires her to perform or to refrain from performing something for the rest of her life. For such a lifelong condition, in effect, keeps the wife bound to her husband forever. Thus, the get lacks the essential feature of severance, which presupposes an absolute release of the husband's hold over her. For example, a get issued on condition that the wife not drink wine for the rest of her life is not effective. But a get issued on condition that she does not drink wine for, say, 30 days is valid, since it allows for the husband's hold over her to cease after 30 days.
It's giving me Nazir vibes.
Yeah, right? Take us through the end over here.
All right. What's other means of severance? Well, get, like we said already, is the only way you can divorce someone. The marital bond, however, can also be severed not through divorce, but through the death of the husband. There are two main legal distinctions between divorce and the husband's death. Divorce renders the wife biblically forbidden to marry a Kohen, whereas a widow may marry a Kohen, except a Kohen Gadol. On the other hand, a widow whose husband has died without children is bound to his brother's Yibum, whereas a divorcee is free to marry anyone else. Okay, what are other types of Gittin?
But she can't marry his brothers.
If he gets divorced from her.
Right, it should really say that. Because it said by a widow may marry a Kohen, but whereas a divorcee is free to marry anyone else, it should really have parentheses, except those that are
Right.
I think I should send it in or leave it alone. Because it's like...
I like it. I think you should send it in. It's not a correction, but it's like, it's your elucidation.
Yeah,
What do you call it before? Editorialism. All right, what are the other types of Gittin? There's a Yavama's get and a slave's get.
Interesting.
So we can...
So what's the Gemara's view of divorce?
That is a great question. Obviously, the Torah's sanction of divorce indicates that there are times when divorce is proper and even necessary. See the Mishnah on that last Amud again. 90a. Nevertheless, the Gemara.
Assuming that there are 90 blocks.
Yeah, I think there is. I remember it being said.
Okay.
Nevertheless, the Gemara at the very end of this tractate poignantly describes the tragedy of divorce with its comment that when a man divorces his first wife, even the Mizbeach cries, as it is written in Malachi. And this further do, you cause the altar of Hashem to be covered with tears, with weeping and with sighing, so that he no longer turns to the offering or receives it with goodwill from your hand. And you ask, why? Because Hashem has been witness between you and your wife of your youth, against whom you have been treacherous, though she is your companion and the wife of your covenant.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Shemar Hashem, tomorrow, middle of May, 2023, we will begin Masechtas Gittin.
I'm very excited. I hope you all are, and to take this journey with us.
Yes. I hope we've encouraged at least one person to do the first Amid with us tomorrow. Or by yourself?